Hello and welcome to On the Bench, the My Catholic Library blog that lets you see my workbench, some of the traditional bookbinding work that I do to bring you new editions of Catholic classics and to repair old treasures that frankly have seen better days. And this is certainly in the second category. So this book here is the Manual of Prayers. It was given to me to work on by my parish priest, Father Paul, who I'm pleased to say is bringing back into use at our parish quite a lot of old stuff that hasn't been used in who knows how long. And this is one of them. And it's got, amongst other things, the St. Alphonsus Liguori, his famous Stations of the Cross meditations. So we use that every Lent for the parish Stations of the Cross. Unfortunately, I don't think this would see another Lent in the state that it's in. So Father Paul's had enough of wrestling with a book that is literally falling apart, so now it's my job to bring this back into working order. Looking at the back of the book, you can see the first problem. The text block isn't even attached to the cover. Plus there are many loose pages, many torn pages, and so there was nothing for it but to disassemble the whole book, repair those pages, and then reassemble the whole thing. This one wins the prize for worst page. The first task is to flatten them with a damp natural sponge and just tease the page back into shape and make sure that all the tears actually line up properly. You can see how badly it's been torn as I very delicately lift it onto the blotting paper. The damp pages are sandwiched between sheets of acid-free blotting paper and then left under weighty wooden boards for 24 hours so that they'll dry perfectly flat. Because this one page was so battered, I made the somewhat extraordinary decision to completely laminate it front and back with a sheet of Japanese tissue paper that has a heat-activated adhesive. This will sandwich all those tears and protect this particularly vulnerable page. Time for a quick spot of ironing to activate that adhesive. The Japanese tissue has also been dampened with filtered water so that when it dries it's nigh on invisible. Trim off the excess and it's ready to be remade back into a full sheet. Plenty of books, the good quality ones anyway, are actually made of sections, sometimes called signatures. Essentially they're a series of booklets that are sewn together. So I've got to remake those booklets by recoupling the loose pages. As I lift this one, you'll see that I've left a gap between the two pages because these form the outside sheet of the signature. So when I put the other sheets inside, the outer ones have to wrap around them so that the front edges all line up. While I set up for the next task, it's as good a time as any to ask you to click like if you've enjoyed this so far, and that way even more people will get to see it, and it really helps me, so I really do appreciate it. What I'm setting up here is a beautiful antique sewing frame I was lucky enough to acquire from a retiring bookbinder. The plan is to re-sew the sections, the booklets, onto 4 linen tapes, which will add a lot of strength to the binding without compromising the book's ability to lie flat when open. The tapes are threaded through sewing keys, the stainless steel H you saw me fiddling with earlier, and held in place with safety pins. Raising that crossbar puts the tapes under tension, holding them firmly in place. And a lot of bookbinders just give them a quick pluck like harp strings, which lets you know that you've gone tight enough. For sewing, you can buy pre-waxed thread, but I do prefer to wax my own with a block of pure beeswax. And the long process of re-sewing can begin. A quick check of the page numbers to make sure I'm sewing everything together in the right order. Obviously the last thing you want is to have to cut the book apart and start again. Sewing onto tapes is a bit of a misnomer really. I'm actually sewing around the tapes but not through them, that would compromise the openability of the book. This is one of my favourite parts of bookbinding work, and it's easy to see why everything to do with the making of books by hand became the monastic craft par excellence, because it really does foster a contemplative frame of mind, and I really would recommend it to anyone. With 2 sections now sewn around the tapes, I tie the 2 together using a standard hitch knot, made a little bit trickier by desperately trying to avoid nudging the camera. Then it's up into the next section and sew back along the other way. To save the curious from counting them, there are 18 sections in total, which took an hour and a half, 90 minutes to reassemble. 2 reef knots just to tie off at the end, a final trim, and after who knows how many decades, the text block has been made whole again. Now, if you've got an old book that has a round spine rather than a flat spine, this is how it's done. A bookbinder's hammer has a very large, flattish face like a cobbler's hammer, and it's a matter of using glancing blows and pulling the text block at the same time to, well, hammer it into shape. Then it's ready to be glued back into its original cover. The final job is to effectively wash the book cover with a diluted wheat starch paste, which is a nice non-chemical way of lifting off all the dirt that's been clinging to the book cloth for who knows how long, and as you can see, there was a lot of it. Unfortunately, even something as gentle as paste washing can lift off the old gold foil decorations, so I use a blunt scalpel to go around the papal tiara and the cross keys into the fine details and really help it stand out on the new, clean cloth. It's taken so long to complete this project because of all the turmoil that's happening in the world at the minute. Global supply chain issues, waiting for the Japanese repair tissue that I've used to become available, that I've grown a beard from the start of the video to now, just to give you some idea of how long it's taken to complete this. But I think it was worth the wait eventually when I had everything that I needed. So the gnarly old pages that had fallen out, there were many ruined pages in this book, are now solidly back in. All those tears have been repaired, and this tissue paper again is definitely worth the wait. It's barely visible. If you look really closely you can see that it's there, but otherwise if you're flicking through the pages, you know, it's really hard to notice. You'd have to look for it to see it. Obviously new, fairly neutral but very nice end papers. And the finishing touch of the paste wash is always interesting, because you're never quite sure what colour of cloth still remains under the decades of candle wax and incense and finger grease. So once all that's come off, you're back to something like the original. Obviously it doesn't look new, but then it isn't new. This book is actually 70 years old this year. I checked. It's 1953 and it's 2023 now, so 70 years old, and not looking bad on it really.